Hey everyone, Jay Whitner here with Space Headlines. We do a quick recap each week of what's going on in space. And today we're going to be talking about the second week of August 2018. Our first item is NASA's formed some partnerships to develop some new technologies. A lot of different companies were awarded in this way, with ULA, United Launch Alliance, being the big winner. We got 3 different deals. Overall, there are a lot of interesting things that NASA is trying to push some tech development on. The lunar lander, which is critical, upper stage reuses and uses, and long-term uses. Long-duration flights, mid-air retrieval. This pertains to Vulcan catching the engines as they are ejected from the rocket so that the engines can be reused, satellite replenishment, lots of very important things. In general, these deals got small amounts of funding from NASA on space standards, a few million here, a few million there, but still enough to push things forward a little bit. The Space Force. Vice President Pence made an announcement at the Pentagon that we're going to have a Space Force. This is going to begin in 2020, and it will be the first new branch of our military since the Air Force was created 70 years ago when it was spun out of the Army Air Corps. So the idea here is to spend roughly $8 billion on this over the next 5 years. And a lot of this money is not new money, really. It's instead of spending it in the Air Force bucket, we'll be spending it in this bucket. So it's maybe half repurposed money and half new money. And we'll have to see what develops out of this. The driving force behind the whole thing, at least in my view, is that in times of budgetary pressures, when the Air Force is under a lot of financial challenges, in the past they pulled money out of space programs to buy more airplanes, to do maintenance on more airplanes. So this is one approach to address that problem by separating out the Space Force. Made in Space continues to disrupt the old paradigms. This new story is about their Archinaut program, which you may have heard of before. Imagine 3D printing that takes place sort of outside as opposed to inside an enclosure like you see in desktop 3D printing. So you can print things basically of any size that you want. And most of the discussion about Archinaut's been about printing really big things in space. This use is to print small things in space. So for small satellites, what they're talking about doing is having a small Archinaut package aboard a satellite that builds a lattice for the solar sails to rest on and be held by in space, instead of shipping that all up and trying to figure out how it can be assembled and unfurled and that sort of thing. So this would provide more power for small satellites to use, which has been historically one of the big problems. And this Archinaut Power Kit, that's what they're calling it, is designed for smaller satellites under 600 pounds. And company CEO Andrew Rush is projecting that this will fly in about 3 years. We had a very interesting launch in Florida. This was the Parker Solar Probe, headed to the sun, launched by United Launch Alliance, ULA, on a Delta IV Heavy rocket, which is the big brawny rocket of ULA. The Delta IV Heavy is their big gun. So a couple of interesting things about this, and it's counterintuitive, but it's harder to send something to the sun than it is to send it out toward Mars, which we won't get into the details about here. But they need a lot of energy and very high speed. So this thing is going to reach a new record on its way to the sun of achieving a speed of 430,000 miles an hour. Humanity has never made anything this fast, so that alone makes it very interesting, and we'll learn things about our sun. There was a neat piece released on nasaspaceflight.com, so you can go there and read through this if you wish. It has a very thorough overview of SpaceX history from the Falcon 1, Falcon 9, Heavy, BFR, and this is all up to date. So it has the current stuff in there. There's a lot of pictures, videos that you might want to look at. You can get things in a lot more depth with a book from Apogee Prime called Here Be Dragons. The author was Stuart Money. I've read it. It's a very good book about Elon Musk and SpaceX. But that book was published in 2014, 4 years ago. And 4 Elon years is a very long time. So while I do recommend that book, this article you can find on nasaspaceflight.com is much more current. And I hate to break it to Mr. Stuart Money, but it's time to do another book. It's 4 years in Elon. It's time for another book already. SpaceX admitted some reporters inside a full-size mock-up of their Crew Dragon. So these lucky guys got to go inside, look around, take pictures, push buttons, and so on and so forth. And in this article, some of these things are shared, the pictures, and there's links for more information. Bottom line is, the Dragon interior looks awesome. The spacesuits look really cool, really futuristic, very streamlined. So not only is this mission proceeding along at dramatically affordable prices compared to historical developments, but everything looks really cool. Lockheed Martin got a big contract. Almost $3 billion for 3 missile warning satellites, roughly $1 billion apiece. And the Air Force also awarded a Northrop Grumman contract for similar satellites in different orbits. These would be 2 polar orbiting satellites. So altogether, I think it is roughly a $5 billion deal. So congratulations to Lockheed Martin and to Northrop Grumman. That's it for Space Headlines, covering the second week of August 2018. Hope you enjoyed our show. We'll be back in roughly a week talking about the third week of August, and we will see you then.